What do you do when everything seems hopeless? Israel was crushed by Egypt's oppression, but the more they were afflicted, the more they multiplied. God was at work in the background, and He still is today. Join us as we review. Lesson 1. Oppression, the background and the birth of Moses. The children of Israel groaned because of the bondage, and they cried out. And their cry came up to God because of the bondage. So God heard their groaning, and God remembered His covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God acknowledged them. Exodus chapter 2 verses 23 to 25 NKJV. The book of Exodus resonates with accounts of the oppressed, the marginalized, the persecuted, the exploited, and the degraded. God was touched by the sufferings of His people, and we can be encouraged by the fact that God is touched by the sufferings of His people, those who trust and fear Him. What does the book of Exodus begin with? The book of Moses begins with a reminder of God's blessings. The Israelites were fruitful and increased abundantly, multiplied and grew exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. Exodus chapter 1 verse 7, NKJV. What was the situation of the Israelites in the time of the Exodus? In the time of the Exodus, the Israelites were enslaved by their Egyptian taskmasters and the oppressive labor that they inflicted upon the Hebrews. However, the book of Exodus ends with God's peaceful and comforting presence in the tabernacle. How do God's blessings upon Israel serve as an encouragement to us? The Israelites were oppressed by the Egyptians, but the more the oppressors afflicted them, the Israelites, the more they multiplied and grew. Exodus chapter 1 verse 12, NKJV. No matter our situation, God is able to reach out to us and bless us. He can bless us even in situations that seem hopeless, at least from a human perspective. Why was Joseph so successful in the land of Egypt? Joseph was so successful in the land of Egypt because the Lord was with Joseph. Genesis chapter 39 verse 2, NKJV. What hope is there for us from the book of Exodus? No matter the situation we find ourselves, God is always there, and we can trust in whatever situation we find ourselves, even as He was with the Israelites. Why is the action of the midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, who disobeyed Pharaoh's command, essential to us today? Although Pharaoh commanded the Hebrew midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, to kill every Hebrew male child on the birth stools, they disobeyed the king, choosing rather to obey God than an earthly king. They not only knew what was right, they did what was right. For this reason, God blessed Shiphrah and Puah. We as believers are to fear God and do what is right, no matter the circumstance. There is always reward that comes with obedience. How is God's providence seen in the birth of Moses? Moses is born in a time when all Hebrew males were killed, but in God's providence, Moses was saved. Moses became the adopted son of Pharaoh's daughter, Hatshepsut. His mother became his nurse, and he was given education that was to prepare him to be Pharaoh. What lesson can we draw from Moses' early life in Egypt? Moses received the best Egyptian education, all in order to prepare him to be the next Pharaoh of Egypt, but all this education becomes useless or even work against what really mattered, the knowledge of God and of His truth. We should be careful of the kind of knowledge we seek to acquire, because not all knowledge is beneficial to our Christian life. How does the entire direction of Moses' life change quickly? Moses killed an Egyptian who was beating a fellow Hebrew, and the matter became known even to Pharaoh. As a result, any plan for Moses to become Pharaoh was thwarted, and it became clear that Moses identified with the Hebrews rather than the Egyptians. In fact, Pharaoh sought to kill Moses, but Moses fled to Midian. In conclusion, even in Israel's oppression, God was with them. He was moved by their affliction, and He raised up Moses to save them. We can be assured that God is there for us in every situation. We only have to accept His offer to save us. May God help us to trust Him, even when situations may look discouraging to man. In Jesus' name.